when a 21-year-old gay guy is like, come out with us to this nightclub, his first response is
like line dancing
and cowboy boots.
Who are your friends? By the way, this is Rio. Like, even the straights here are colorful. Where the fuck did your friend take you? All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Cracking Spines Podcast. I'm here with Candice, and we're kicking off week 2 of Pride Month. That is the G and LGBT. Our book that we're reading is Where We Go From Here by Lucas Rocha. If you're new here, please tell everyone you know about this podcast. Rave about it. Tell them it's the most amazing thing you've ever heard. And if you don't do this, then that'll let us know that you're a horrible person and we don't like you.
Yeah.
You can check out our store at kit.co/Cracking Spines Podcast. That's kit.co/Cracking Spines Podcast. Here you can find all our reading materials, the books, the book lists, anything you could possibly need that we use ourselves and we stand by. This is a part of the episode where we talk about our amazing sponsors. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have any, as we are a new podcast. If you would like to sponsor an episode, please email us at info@crackingspinespodcast.com. And as always,
listener discretion is advised.
Let's get into it.
All right.
All right. So for LGBT month, Pride Month, LGBTQIA+, the Q, the I, the A, and the plus will be coming next year, Pride Month. We're easing this breeders into queer literature. So yeah, let's get into it.
All right.
I was actually moved to tears a few times.
Ooh, are you going to cry today?
No. I can keep it together because I am a what professional. Some of us know how to be one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hollow tin chest.
Mm-hmm. It's very cold in there.
All right, you ready?
So I don't sweat. All right, let's get into it.
All right. When Ian tests positive for HIV, he doesn't know what to do. All he knows for certain is that his life is about to change forever. That's when he meets Victor, whose test has come back negative. Victor was dating Enrique. Enrique has been living with HIV for 3 years now. Even though he's undetectable, meaning he can't transmit the virus to anyone else, Victor feels betrayed that he wasn't told sooner. Still, Victor is compelled to introduce Ian to Enrique, hoping that maybe Enrique can help him navigate these new waters. Their lives will come together in a powerful story of love, friendship, and self-acceptance. In this absorbing novel, Brazilian author Lucas Rocha unveils the common misconceptions and prejudices that still surround HIV in the 21st century, showing how far we've come while shining a light on how far we have yet to go.
So I think it's important to note that this was actually translated. So this stylistically, it feels amateur. However, the tone of it, and I think Lucas Rocha did a really good job on educating people on HIV and the information that surrounds HIV without being like, hey, this is an informative story on how to deal with HIV. He placed the information in a way that it would be more easily absorbed. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I really wish he would have gone a little further into PrEP and post antiviral and stuff like that. But
he still managed to weave a lot of information that some stuff there I hadn't even known into the story where it didn't feel forced.
Yeah.
Like they're carrying on conversations. You know, there's people in the book that are familiar with HIV and living with HIV, and there's people who aren't. And so he used conversations between them to sort of interject that information, which I thought was really great. I thought it was very informative without feeling technical.
One thing that when it comes to the HIV conversation, one thing that I'm often think about is that I came out right around the time internet was like picking up and gaining speed, about 13, 14. It wasn't really in everybody's home. Like at 12, I had a computer and the internet in my house, and that was 25 years ago. And so it was a quarter century ago. And so like at that time, not a lot of people did. I was considered one of the quote unquote rich kids because I had that. So the older crowd in the LGBTQ plus community, in my community, the older guys, they were very, very keen or very intent on educating us younger guys about HIV.
Oh, okay.
They were very like, be careful. Don't just this is how easy it is to get. This is a myth about it. So it was like constantly put like, at least around the guys that I was around, they were constantly like mentoring, like, hey, be careful. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like, be careful who you're with. This is the demographic that is most likely to affect. This is, you know, don't judge people without knowing. And even if you do know, like, you can't just catch it. Like, so we had that. And then I feel like as the internet developed and all the information is at everyone's fingertips, which for us to expect anyone to look up proper information about anything on the internet is, it's asking a lot apparently, but my generation kind of just were like, whatever, they have the internet, they can figure it out. And like they let go of it.
That's an interesting point.
Because when I talk to younger gay men, who in the LGBTQ plus community aren't at the highest risk, but they're at a higher risk than a lot of people. Their knowledge on it is dependent on if they have known someone that is HIV positive, or they're very active in the community, or, you know, they after they came out, they really explored everything that the LGBTQ plus was about, the goods and the bads, the dangers and the awareness that we have to have. So when I talk to my straight friends, I'm like, why are you even having sex? Like, so this is really derogatory language I'm about to use. So, like, this was an old way of thinking. This is not how we think now. This is not what it is. But when there was still a much bigger stigma on HIV, the quote unquote, I'm saying quote, bunny ears, all that joke was that HIV was the gay baby.
You're right. I remember that.
When you gave somebody HIV, you basically got them pregnant. You were you two were going to be together, like, because nobody else is going to want you, blah, 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 all that other like derogatory crap that comes along with it. So the best way for me to describe things to my straight friends, to educate them on it, I'm like, okay, we don't refer to it that way anymore, but keep that idea in your head, because now we have PrEP. PrEP is basically like your birth control. Right. It's in this scenario. Again, do not use this as this is just for explanation purposes only. Right.
You're talking about the little blue pill prophylactic that they talk about in the book, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's PrEP, and that reduces your risk of contracting HIV, I believe, up to 98%. Don't quote me on that. But it's up there in the 90 percentile, just as you would with birth control. Birth control. Yeah. And then in case of accidental exposure, they have antivirals that you can take. You like going, like, if you were a little careless, or you were put into a position that you didn't want to be in and you were forced into a situation. If you go to the hospital and say, hey, I believe, or I understand that, I think that, or that person for sure has HIV or AIDS, they will give you antivirals that act as like a plan B. So then having to move that conversation into getting your vitals, for lack of better words, to a place where you're undetectable, making it harder for someone that knows their status and knows their status is undetectable, is a lot safer for you to sleep with or have unprotected sex with than someone that does not know their status.
Yeah. Someone who's educated on themselves. And
exactly. So this book does a great job of casually discussing all of this stuff because it is probably a main fixture in the story, but it's not the main plot of the story. Right. It's
the catalyst for the story.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the catalyst.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good call out. That, I mean, even when you read the description, I was pleasantly surprised that it's like, okay, HIV is part of this. It's very informative. It's the catalyst for the story, but it's not the story.
It's not the story. The story is like a push, pull, love situation.
Love situation and background. Yeah, let's get into that because I really enjoyed that. So
this entire book, I was like, yep, been there. Yep, I know what that feels like. Yep, I get that. Yep, I've seen that happen. Yep, I understand that happening to a person. Yep, I've been the friend that person's leaned on. It's like, every time we read one of these, I'm like, the universal experience of being queer. Like this person is from Brazil, telling a story from a Brazilian perspective. And I'm like, oh, you guys went through the same shit we do.
Yeah. So the story is told switching perspective from the three main male characters.
Yes.
Enrique, Ian, and Victor. So we change the perspective and follow these three men with very different experiences from start to finish.
Yes. So Ian,
they're all gay. It's three gay men, but their journeys are very different in the community and their experience.
Yeah. So Ian, he tests positive Vitor is also at the clinic that same day. He tests negative, but Vitor just had a sexual encounter with Enrique, who is undetectable, but also insisted on using all protection with Victor, and then told Vitor afterwards.
Yeah, we open with Victor waiting to get his results, very upset. He's there to be tested because after having sex...
Well, we open with Ian.
Do we open with Ian?
Yeah. It's just really a matter of them, like, the waiting game.
Right.
They're kind of just sitting there, you know, Ian notices Vitor, Vitor notices Ian in the room because they're just all waiting for the same results.
Exactly. Yeah, chapter 1 is Ian being called into the little room to get his results. I mean, Ian finds out in page, 5?
Yeah.
That he has tested positive for HIV.
Now, when my first time getting tested, I was 15. I went with a friend. You can't say no risk, but there was very, very minimal risk of me having contracted HIV at that point. But I went with a friend. And even though I knew that there was like the chances were I was more likely to win the lottery at that point. But, you know, and this is when you had to go get tested on a Thursday and then come back the next Thursday to get your results.
Yeah.
And so you spent a week like, so I go in there to get my results. And the guy is sitting there looking at the clipboard. And I'm like, just tell me.
Yeah.
Like, and you have that experience with Ian or Vitor there. I'm not sure which one it was. But they're like, can you just tell me what it is?
Yeah, cut the small talk.
Like, tell me and then we'll talk about it afterwards. And the guy goes, well, you're positively negative.
Oh, that's not cool.
I fucking broke half the shit. I was like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And he like was like, oh, I just, you know, you seemed really nervous and I just wanted to kind of break the ice. And I was like, because I was like expecting like, oh, it's gonna be fine, but like, also I'm kind of nervous for. And then the first sound you hear is pot.
Oh, that's
positively negative.
That's like, not a cool fake out.
I flipped the fuck out. It's the worst feeling ever. So when they're like, let's just get this over with, I'm like, you have no idea. At least you didn't have to wait a week to be told of psych. This was only chapter like 1.
This is chapter 1. Yeah. So we then jump to Victor, who we go to his POV as he sees Ian, who he doesn't know yet, come out of the room. Eyes are red. I mean, poor Victor sitting there waiting for results where he just had what he considers an exposure. Yeah. Because he's not educated on HIV yet. At all. So he's had sex with Enrique.
Yes.
And after that, Enrique had shared with him that he's
HIV positive, undetectable.
Right. They use condoms.
Even for oral sex, they use condoms.
Right. So when he shared his status with Victor, he was like, it's effectively practically nil.
Yeah, probably way safer than any person has ever had sex.
In all the ways that you would count an exposure. But Victor's still there getting tested and pissed about it.
Yeah.
He's very upset that he was exposed because...
I was so back and forth with this.
Yeah, so when he sees...
so back and forth with this.
So he sees Ian come out, who he reads between the lines where he sees this guy who just got what was clearly bad news of some kind.
Yes.
And then he goes in and finds out, oh, you're fine.
And the way that Ian was told was, so you're negative for herpes and syphilis, but you're HIV positive. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What? Like, so Vitor goes back there and he explains all of it, and that, you know, he was pissed that Enrique told him afterwards. And, you know, the nurse actually takes Enrique's side of it and starts pleading with
Victor
about, you know, he's like, oh, well, he didn't have to tell you. Like, it's the fact that he did tell you is good.
What were your thoughts on that?
He just has to make sure he uses protection.
And Victor's indignant. He's like, no, he should have told me before we did anything, so I had the choice.
Enrique should have told Victor. And the reason why is because what if the condom broke? What if he wasn't undetectable? What if so many things could have happened because it's not 100% guaranteed? And, you know, Vitor isn't on PrEP and he's uneducated on it. Like,
right. It's a conversation to have before.
That's a conversation to have before. And I get that, like, I feel like the only reason why you wouldn't tell somebody, the only reason why I can only imagine I wouldn't tell somebody, let's put it that way, is that I would be afraid that it would jeopardize the relationship. Me knowing everything I need to know, but also, do I want to be with someone that's that ignorant and unwilling to like learn about it?
Yeah.
Like, so I would use it as a buffer. To figure out as like a litmus test for if I want to date somebody. But I was so back and forth on it because I saw where Enrique was coming from. I saw where Vitor was coming from. And I think that Enrique should have told Vitor. That's my personal stance. Now, I'm not somebody living with HIV. I'm not somebody that is in a relationship with somebody with HIV. So I'm not a source of judgment or good information as far as that goes.
Well, a credit to Lucas is I went back and forth too. And I think he did a really good job of like, I hated some of these characters at some point and then turned around and like,
I only hated one character.
Teared up and felt for them. And it's like, he did a really good job of like, okay, Victor's kind of no, but I kind of see his point. No, but he's kind of like, I did that with all three characters.
Yeah.
So we leave the clinic and they end up on the same bus stop.
Yeah, Victor and Elon.
So Victor's calling his best friend and going on and on about I'm negative and thank God because this guy exposed me and you know he's still like mad about it. He's still recapping the same thing to his best friend. And when he hangs up the phone, he realizes that Ian, who has just tested positive, overheard that whole conversation, right?
Yes.
And Ian shares that he did in fact just find out that he's positive. And Victor makes the decision to offer Enrique's contact information. Like,
well, it's not just that. At first, Victor is completely empathetic, which is antithetical to who he was when it comes to Enrique. And then he's like, hey, I know someone. I mean, he didn't really out Enrique in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Because Enrique is still an anonymous person. I can tell everybody here that I know few people with HIV and you guys would not have any idea who I'm talking about. So he doesn't really like out Enrique, but then, you know, it was kind of like a tit for tat, like, hey, you didn't tell me, but I told somebody.
Yeah.
So this is your way to make it up.
well, I sort of read it that because Ian breaks down into tears and it's just like sobbing on this stranger's shoulder.
His hot tears soaking through his sleeve.
And Victor just kind of, I felt his age in that moment when he was like, can I give you somebody to talk to that could actually like
help you with this?
He's lost. That's how I read it, that he was like, here, talk to that guy. Yeah. He can probably educate you.
He's got it.
Yeah, Victor was out of his element. He was like, I mean, he was empathetic, but he also was like, yeah,
this ain't gonna work.
I don't
when he's talking to
I don't know what to say.
Sandra.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
And by the way, I'm not rolling my R weird. That's exactly how the Audible guy said it. Sandra. I hate her.
Victor's best friend, Sandra.
I hate her.
Yeah.
I hate her.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
Okay. So now we jump to Enrique's POV, and he's sort of processing the fact that he's tried texting, he's tried calling, but Victor is clearly not interested and not talking to him.
Oh, he's pissed.
Yeah, that's where we join his POV, is basically like he's being ghosted right now.
Yeah.
And he's processing the fact that he shared his status and now he's being ghosted. That's where we meet him as a character.
Yeah, and the problem I have with that, in his head, he's being ghosted because he shared his status.
Right.
In Victor's argument, he's being ghosted because he lied and waited to share his status. It's not about the fact that he shared his status, it's when he shared his status.
Right.
So, I mean, let's not forget, Enrique is 21.
Right.
Victor is 18.
Right.
So they're both like babies as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Right. Which also breaks my heart that kids that young are testing positive.
God. But yeah, to your point, he thinks he's being ghosted because he shared his status, and in his POV, we learn that a big part of that is because of his previous breakup.
Carlos.
Yes.
His Cuban lover.
Yeah, so we meet him as a character and he's processing being ghosted. He's got a lot of language. It's like, it's happening again. It's happening. He's projecting the Carlos situation onto what's going on with Victor.
Yeah.
Which is why he's missing what Victor's trying to say, which is, no, you should have told me before. You should have given me the choice. It's not your status. Whereas Carlos, on the other hand, his trash ex was a completely different problem.
Yeah, I'll be with you through it. I'll do all this and just kidding, ghost.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of false promises that came with Carlos, and he took off to New Zealand, which New Zealand had a law against immigrating with HIV.
Carlos is so toxic that he leaves Brazil and immigrates to New Zealand, where Enrique can't follow him.
Yes.
The baggage, he's totally projecting that on Victor. And we learn that very quickly, that this guy is still processing that fucking breakup.
Yeah, Carlos plays a big role in this book. Fucker.
Yeah.
I hate that guy.
And you don't realize it until the very, very end, because it just seems like the baggage that he hasn't gotten over. You know, like Carlos is a character that's not really there. He's not really present.
And with Enrique, you're just like, let it go, dude. And then you're like, wait, okay.
Enrique's like issues of that breakup are what's like very much he's putting in the relationship with Victor.
Yes.
So.
Very, very much. So finally, Victor does respond to Enrique, and they do talk. And he said, Victor's like, oh, by the way, when I was getting tested because you fucking lied to me, I'm negative, by the way. This other kid, he wasn't negative. He was positive.
Right.
And so, I was talking to him, whatever. And I told him like, hey, I know someone that is also positive that could probably help you out a little bit better than this. And I told him about you. Can I give him your information? And Enrique is like, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Which actually turned out well because Enrique and become like really good friends.
Right.
Enrique, as you gather from these like earlier chapters, is kind of like a pushover in a little way, because he has Eric, his drag queen best friend roommate,
right,
that will snatch his phone out of his hand and text for him and be like, hey, yo, this is how it is.
Right.
And so you get that vibe from me that he's extremely passive.
So my observation, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So he is very passive, and Victor is very sure of himself. Even when he realizes he was wrong about something, he's so 18. And he's very, very like out there. His personality is way more outgoing, which is kind of funny.
Well, he grew up in a home where...
That's where I was going with this, is that the three personalities, and right about now we start learning their parents.
Yes.
Relationship to them coming
Victor,
out.
who never really had to come out because his parents always knew.
Yeah. They lived in a house where like love is love. Do you like the boys? You like the girls? Like, so it's just sort of like a natural age support.
So he was very confident. He's very outgoing, all that. And then you have, who his family is like, okay, well, all right, we'll learn.
We can come to terms with it.
And then you have Enrique, whose mom was like, get out. You're embarrassing me. What are people going to think about me? It's not about you, Enrique. It's about me as a parent. By the way, if you're that parent, fuck all the way off.
Fuck all the way off.
It's not about you.
That's not the goddamn job.
Fucking Christ.
Yeah. Enrique has the ultimate rejection. Mom says, what are people going to think when I tell them that my son is
a degenerate?
Yep.
You don't.
Kicks him out of the house, and this is years ago. He's 21, which means he's been on his own without that support system.
Yeah.
And that makes my blood boil.
That was my mom. She didn't believe in throwaway children. Oh. That's what she called it. Throwaway children.
Yeah. But anyway, so the three different parent supportive, I felt like there was somewhat of a correlation to sort of how they show
reflection. And because you have Jon, who's like, he's both outgoing and shy.
Right. He's self-assured without being confident.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Like
he's somewhere in between the two other guys.
Yeah. It's clearly a spectrum with you have Victor on one side of the spectrum, you have Enrique on the other side of the spectrum, and then you have Jon right in the middle.
Right.
So I do believe it's a parenting style.
So Ian and Enrique meet up for coffee.
Yes.
When he reaches out. Enrique's not super like, he gets the text and he looks at it. He's like, it's not my job. Yeah. And it kind of harkens back to what you were talking about earlier. His first knee-jerk response is, it's not my job to educate this guy.
Yeah.
And then he's like, is it my job to educate? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He goes back and forth on that before finally ultimately deciding, sure, why not?
So they go and they get coffee, right? Jon has mostly questions about like the antivirals and like what's it like and how is it dealing with it on a regular basis.
Because he's in a dark place right now. Like
he just found out.
His POV just before the coffee date is he's like,
life is over.
He's having a hard time believing everything's going to be okay. Yeah,
which is the common response for a lot of young men with HIV. Mm-hmm. Or when they find out that they're HIV positive. I have a friend that is a social worker. He used to work in testing centers and he would sit down and counsel people and have to explain like, this isn't a death sentence anymore.
Right.
Like, you can live a full, healthy life.
And he's been told that a couple of times at this point, and it's not sinking in yet when he meets up with Enrique.
At all. And
that's just bouncing off of him right now.
And then Enrique is like, oh yeah, you're going to get mood swings from those antivirals, by the way. He's like, wait, what? He's like, oh yeah, you can be a real bitch.
Yeah. I feel like that's why he listens to him, because it's the first person who's like, yeah, it's not a death sentence. It's going to be okay.
But it
also isn't like easy. Like there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about the fact that I have this.
Yeah.
He's very real with him of like, and the drugs take a while to get used to. Mm-hmm. And you have to have this conversation with everyone that you're going to be with. And like, I
found that part extremely rich.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Enrique.
Yeah.
Hold on. First of all,
maybe we should practice that part a little better.
Where was that energy with Victor?
But I think that's why Ian responds to him, because he's being real with him. Like, yeah, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be easy. You're not going to forget that you have this, and that's what kind of like permeates the conversation for him.
Well, I think also what's hard about it is like gay love, queer love.
Yeah.
Is hard to navigate as it is. Mm-hmm. Especially with gay men. And I'm going to call all of us out right now. Very superficial.
Yeah.
Very superficial. If you are not a fucking 10s across the board, which is a queer reference. But if you're not 10s across the board, like you can be thrown away real quick.
Yeah.
Or you can be like treated horribly, or
So that makes this conversation even harder.
Yeah, because you're no longer just having to navigate the difficulties. That's I think the difficulty that I think that's the difficulty that kept Enike from telling this guy that he met that he just had such good chemistry with. He's like, oh, I don't want to lose this, so
he got scared.
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I feel guilty. I'm going to say something. So like he has a conscience. It's like, it wasn't like he was being just a shitty person because he's a shitty person. He made a shitty decision as a good person and then try to rectify that. And I think ultimately that does play into the relationship later with Victor.
Because both of them share in their POVs flashbacks of when they met, their first dates. There was a lot of they were both in it.
Good chemistry.
They were falling hard for each other. So that I think is one more element that sort of sheds a light on okay, I can see why that made it even harder for him.
And
to
with
have
the
this
knowledge of how hard it is to find that person, especially in the gay community, which is small.
Right.
When you find it, like it's really hard not to latch onto it, like overly like super glue yourself to it.
Right.
So watching this, I understand why Enike didn't say, I'm not excusing it. I understand why he avoided it.
And that's what Lucas does really well. And as a reader, I'm not a gay man, but still, like the love story and the push-pull, and I can understand. No, he should have told him. Okay, wow, you guys fell hard.
I get
you
why
guys fell
he didn't.
hard in love. Okay, I'm starting to see why that conversation is harder and hard. Like the more
he's ultimately making the decision, do I break my own heart right now?
Right. The more I got to know their love story up until that moment, the more I'm like, okay, I get it.
It's such a difficult decision.
It's a difficult decision, and he paints that really well, and like lets you just have your decision or your opinion. You're on,
And what always flashbacks to me is
on his decision ultimately.
Two of the people that I know that are HIV positive, they are because the person with them cheated on them. That's how they got it. It was because they tested with this person, they were good, they were in a serious committed relationship. That person was playing around on the side, brought it back to the house, and that's how. So when I look at you didn't tell them, I'm like, I know people that found out because someone didn't tell them,
right?
Because that conversation wasn't being had because secrets were being kept, and that's how they ended up with it.
Right. That's totally different. Didn't tell them.
Yeah. So like, I understand why he didn't, but I also understand how heavy or like the implications, not so much the implications, but like I understand the risks of not telling someone, knowing Enike was undetectable and that he provided all the protection in the world and all that. I'm like, would I be that? I would tell him like, you didn't tell me.
Right.
I'm fine with it. I'm just pissed that you waited till afterwards. That's how I would have approached it.
Victor's 18.
Yeah.
And he's communicating his rage.
How dare you?
He's communicating his rage in a very opinionated, loud 18-year-old, which is just like, you should have told me is all he says.
Yeah.
And Enike interprets that as, you should have told me so I wouldn't have been with you. Which is not what he means.
Yeah, I know. He's like,
it's not what he means. But
like,
that's how he's taking it. Every time he
we're starting this off on a lie?
Yeah, every time he says, you should have told me, he completely makes that mean the rest of that sentence is, so that I could have left you.
Yeah.
And that's not what he's saying.
At all. So you're like, out of the coffee shop we go.
Yeah, so I think the next big pivotal point in this story is the drag show, right?
Yes.
Because Eric, his roommate, they have this big nightclub drag show that he's
the night on the Nile, where
yeah,
he's like doing his Cleopatra music or makeup and
right,
just watching YouTube, and I'm like, so relatable. I mean, I'm not a drag queen, but if I was a drag queen, I would be on YouTube. Like, how do I do this?
Right. So Enike uses this moment in two ways. One, to reach out to Ian and be like, get out of your head, come party. Like,
yes,
just come hang out. Like,
Ian, it's this poor sweet thing. He's like cowboy boots and
he hears like, nightclub and he's like line dancing. He's like, he goes, what the hell nightclubs have you been to?
Who are your friends? I mean, they have, okay, so every gay person will tell every straight person this. Your bars and your clubs are fucking boring. Yeah. They are so boring. I prefer boring, so don't be mad at me for saying that. I prefer a straight dive bar, specifically a sports bar.
Right.
Someone that has a pool table. That's what I liked when I went to bars.
Yeah, me too.
But like, if I wanted to go out and have a fun time, I'm not going to a straight club.
Yeah. Ian's best friend is a straight man. So in that moment, when a 21-year-old gay guy is like, come out with us to this nightclub, his first response is
like line dancing
and cowboy boots.
He's like, no, you poor soul. I'm like, now you want to be a mentor?
He's like, oh,
now you want to be a
sweet
mentor.
baby Jesus, no.
By the way, this is Rio. Like, even the straights here are colorful. Where the fuck did your friend take you?
Who is your friend?
Do you know what Carnival is? Just want to make sure. I want to find a baseline for you. Fuck. Poor you.
So,
but I think this also demonstrates something really, really well here. He's not heavily involved in the gay scene.
No, he's just freshly out.
Yeah. And with the two people he'd been with, and he knew which one it was, he contracted HIV.
Right.
Like, I think a lot of younger gay men, like HIV is the last thing on their mind. And they go into it like, I need to explore who I am.
Right.
And they don't want to take the time to wear condoms or get tested or get on PrEP or like all that stuff. And,
right.
And those that dodge the bullet are doing exactly that, dodging the proverbial bullet. But at the end of the day, it's not even like dodging a bullet anymore. It's like, cause it's not a death sentence anymore, but you know, you're playing with fire. That's, you know, they're juggling with fire at that point.
Yeah.
And so like, I think that demonstrates like, hey, you don't have to be, you know, going to circuit parties and doing drugs and like, cause that is like the idea that a lot of younger gays put on HIV. That's the people that are in the bars and they're going home with someone different every night. That's what they attribute HIV to. And in reality, it's not like, that's not the risk. Like a lot of those people are on PrEP. A lot of those people use protection. A lot of those people like are careful. They screen the people that they're with.
Have the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and I just want these kids to know anybody can have it. Anybody can get it.
Yeah. And that's another thing that Ian's coming to terms with as we follow him through this book is that he's dealing with the whole, I'm dirty, I'm ashamed. When people find out, they're going to think the following things about me. And that's anybody can get it is not in his mentality at all, which is why he's judging himself so hard.
And that's where you see the effects of the stigma that is put on those with HIV, because like we don't say things like, oh no, I'm clean. Like you have HIV, no, I'm clean. What? No, it's not dirt. It's not dirty.
Dirty, right?
It's not an illness. You're not sick. Like you have a virus that's inside of you, like herpes. How many people get cold sores? Right. Are they sick? Right. Are they dirty because they get a cold sore?
And even though he's had it for 3 years, Enrique still is dealing with that.
Yeah.
That shameful, that what people, they can tell me all day long, even the people that love me, that they're not judging me, but really they are.
And it's because he judges himself.
It's because he judges himself, that he was stupid. He made a bad choice.
Critics.
Yes. So he reaches out to Ian, but he also reaches out to Victor. But it's kind of an olive branch, you know?
Yeah.
When he's like, bring your friend, your favorite character, bring Sandra, come support the show. So that's sort of the next big moment in this story.
Well, that's when Enrique and Eric are the ones that invite Victor and Sandra. And Ian's already going to be there.
Because he's already invited him by now. For the first time, all the characters are in one location, and this is a pivotal moment.
I never looked at it that way, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time we're all together in one place.
This is where like fucking drama pops the fuck off.
It should be noted that Enrique shows up hammered.
Fucking trash.
Trash. He was drinking with the queens while they were getting ready, and he did not handle it well. Like that really cheap wine.
Yeah, that's normal.
Oh, I was like, that's what happened, isn't it?
That's normal.
I was like, wait, did I have that
wrong? We all used to pregame a little too hard.
What I thought was funny was they pull it out to like have a toast before leaving the apartment, and everybody's commenting on how horrible the wine is. It's just like swill, and then it jumps to getting to the club, and
it's like Ouzo,
and he's trash.
Or was it called Ouzo?
Yeah, and he's
that black licorice fucking liquor wine.
Everybody's like, okay, cheers just for the gesture because this is horrible. Cut to the next chapter, and he's just bombed. I should not have had a half gallon of that. I was like, oh, did I skip a page?
That's how it works. I mean, that's how it was for me. I'm like, I'll have a glass of wine 3 bottles later. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah. So he gets there and gets proceedingly more irritated with his certainty that Victor's not going to show up.
Yeah.
So he does what any sensible
person. Drink my emotion.
He has 3 shots of tequila and sends him a voice memo.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the move.
Yeah.
So he sends him this voice memo that's basically just like, you are a selfish...
Should have done it on Instagram. You can unsend that bitch.
Selfish, petulant child was basically the theme of this. And it goes...
I love that word.
It took up a page and a half if you're reading it, of this voice memo. He went on and on. I was like, damn, dude. I don't think memos can go that long. It had to have been at least 3.
Yeah, so when that went on, I was like, said that. Like that was, I listened to, I was like making comments like, ooh, nope, she did that. Ooh. Like the whole time. But then when that part happened, I just listened to it and I was like, just like jaw dropped, like, yeah. And he goes off and I go, oop, he said that.
Yeah, it's a very stereotypical, he'd been hanging onto a lot of shit, had enough alcohol, and he said all the things.
He didn't like open the floodgates. He fucking blew up the dam.
Yeah.
Like, fucking Jesus Christ. He went off.
You think it's cool that I like you so much and I can't be with you because of this crap, because of your fear and your selfishness, when I know you like me too, damn it. Fuck you. Fuck your fears. What about my fears? What about my selfishness? Do you think this is easy for me to wake up with? I mean, he went...
At least he admitted his selfishness.
He went on and on and on.
Because I feel like in the beginning, he was being selfish without acknowledging that he was being selfish. And he was like, you're being selfish to Victor.
Yeah. I'll give everyone one guess what's happening 2 minutes later. In walks Victor. Yeah. And he turns around and is like, oh, shit.
It's one of those... Spoke too soon.
Yeah. And so he pulls out his phone to try to unsend it or something like that. And his phone dies. Has no battery. His phone dies.
That's what we call karma.
So him and Sandra walk up all normal. That's when he's like, oh, okay. He didn't listen to it because it's a fresh voicemail. So he figures out that it's sitting in his messages just waiting to be heard. And naturally, that's when Ian arrives.
Yeah, Ian's like, what's going on, guys? And he's like, so glad you're here. I need you to do me a favor.
Yeah, he pulls him aside and he's like, I fucked up. I fucked up.
Oh, I fucked up bad.
So he tells him what he did and he's like, you have to take his phone and delete the message. Poor Ian's like, what?
He's like,
I just met all you people.
All right. Give me a second.
Twist my arm.
He's like, oh,
it took very little convincing to get him to be part of these shenanigans, by the way. But he's like, hey,
us gay men love our drama.
Can I borrow your phone? My battery's dead.
Classic line.
And what is Sandra? Is you can use mine.
Fucking bitch. Stay out of it.
She can tell something's going on and she's just inserting herself. So
anyway, fast forward.
They have a really good time together.
They do.
Because before he can delete the message, Ian realizes that Victor's battery has died. His phone's off.
Yeah.
So him and Hike have a great evening together. They're kissing, they're dancing. Then everything sort of goes...
uglies on the dance floor.
Then everything sort of goes black and fuzzy and he wakes up very hungover at 11 o'clock the next morning.
All of a sudden things go black and fuzzy. I think he came in and out of consciousness that whole night.
It was like bursts of memory.
I can just see him on the dance floor like, when did you get here? 4 times.
Introducing them like over and over and over again.
Looking at Sandra like, what's your name? I like you.
So he wakes up head pounding and has enough of a fuzzy memory.
Dry mouth. I don't miss those days.
Oh, I know. That Victor came back with him to the apartment.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I fucked up.
Yeah. So he stumbles to the bedroom door, opens it, and can hear them talking in the living room. And he's pissed because he's listened to the message.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. And she is like, dude, don't do this now. He's got to be so hungover. Don't do this now. And that's when in Hike's like, morning.
Hey.
Hey, guys.
How's everyone doing?
So Sandra's trying to calm him down and like, hey, he's hungover. Don't do this right now.
Don't insert yourself.
But Enrique's like, no, let's just have this conversation. I'd rather just like, let's just have it on out.
The 2 passive guys are going full direct.
So they go into the bedroom to have the conversation.
Oof.
And this is the fight.
Chapter 15.
Yes.
Like, once again, Enrique is calling Victor selfish, but it's like Victor has a right to be scared because of his ignorance.
Right.
I hate to break to you guys, but ignorance isn't always bliss.
Right.
And so he has a right to be scared by something until he's educated on it. And instead of Enrique sitting down and being like, okay, what are your questions about it?
Right.
He's like, you just don't understand. Okay, well, help him understand.
Right.
Like, I get it. I get that Enrique is the one living with it.
Right.
But Enrique, you're the one living with it.
Mm-hmm.
He's not. Like, you need to explain it to him.
Mm-hmm. That's a great call out. It's like, you're the one living with it, but you want him to come along, help him.
Yeah.
Help him support you.
Like
you don't know what you don't know,
like,
right?
So far, Enrique has given more information about living with HIV to Ian than he has to Victor.
Yeah. Yeah. So the conversation starts where Victor walks into the bedroom and he's like, is this where you apologize for everything you said in that message? And Enrique says, no, I meant it. I'm glad I said it.
Then this is where it gets
double down.
This is where it gets pissy. Oh, you said all that shit. You meant all that shit. Then you partied with me all night and brought me back home. And then we hooked up. And now you're like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. Once again.
You waited till afterwards.
Right.
For me to find this out.
Right.
You could have told me beforehand, hey, I was drunk. I left you a really shitty message. I was angry in my feelings, blah, blah, blah.
Victor stumbles through making these points. He's got a leg to stand on. Like, once again,
communication.
You chose when to tell me so that the choice was there for you, but not for me.
Exactly. You keep taking my choice away.
Victor never really eloquently says that what he's angry about each time is, give me the choice. Let me choose you. Yeah. Stop making the choice for me. So the argument progresses until eventually. So he says, I have HIV and people just disappear in my life. And I thought you were going to disappear, just like you did. And Victor says, but you can't act like you don't have any responsibility for what happened. None of this would have happened if you'd been more careful. You're mad at me, and all of this is your fault. Ultimately saying to Enrique the angry shit he says in his head to himself. And Victor's speaking...
He's shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
He's shooting from the hip, for sure. Shooting from the hip.
He ate those words the minute he said them. He immediately recoiled and was like, oh, no, that's not one. He's 18. He was like, no.
If you guys could just see the face.
Oh. Like, you could tell Victor was like,
the face that Candice just made. Oh, no.
He knew he shit the bed the minute he did it. You know what I mean?
He Amber Hearded that bitch.
But in the moment that Victor realizes that he misspoke, is when Enrique thinks this to himself. And there it is, the punch to the gut, the thing that no one says, but I know everyone's thinking.
Oh, the thing you were looking for the whole time, and you pushed it and pushed it and pushed it till you got...
Self-fulfilling prophecy right there.
Yeah, how'd you just been cool?
But it's the, I feared that this situation that I totally just created for myself was going to happen. Like, okay.
Yeah,
so
it's like being afraid of fire and then lighting a fire in the middle of your bed.
Yeah.
And then crawling into it to go to sleep.
Right. So Enrique throws him out.
Yeah.
Get out of my house.
Get the fuck out.
Yep. As soon as the words come out of his mouth, like he's trying to walk it back.
Yeah.
He's trying to put...
He's like, shit.
Yeah, he's trying to unring the bell, but...
Damn, my 18-year-old bell.
Yeah, and so he's like, just get out.
You guys have to remember, like, that mouth-to-brain connection isn't fully developed at 18.
Right.
At all.
So Lucas does something I really like here, which is the next POV chapter is Ian.
Yeah.
Who is going through his first week of treatment. That's how we sort of speed this up to like 5-6 days later.
And that was great too, because when he first talked to the nurse, he's like, oh, so just start my pills down. No. You have to go see the doctor.
Right.
Get your blood. We need to see what your counts are and get
So we follow him.
I love that was explained.
Yeah. We follow him through what treatment looks like. What is, the doctor explains to him the two different very important numbers. We want this number to be below this threshold. We want this number to be above this threshold. I mean, he was very non-technical in the way that we got to go along with him to all these appointments, which made it educational without feeling like spoon-fed or awkward, Over the course of the week, I felt like this. And so he's getting acclimated. He's getting more adjusted.
And he meets Gustavo. Oh, Gustavo comes into the room. He goes, hey, someone sitting here?
Yeah.
Fully just like, I got a boner for you.
Yeah.
It was great. And Gustavo's like, no. I'm crushing on you right now. Like, you're not getting away from me.
Yeah. The meet cute was so perfect. The line when he says, what are you doing this afternoon? And Ian says, I'm going to go see a movie by myself. And he's like, too bad I have stuff to do. Otherwise I would go with you. And he was like, well, maybe I like going to the movies by myself.
It's not too bad.
It's a public place. I can go with you if I want. It was like, dude.
I'm like,
it was smooth.
It was.
I want to say that I think that meet cute, I love that it happened towards the end of that week where we're following along. He's getting adjusted. He's like, okay, I can. And he even says, as he's sitting there having that coffee by himself, he's fine. He feels okay. He knows that it's
not going to be easy.
And he and Victor have some drama going on. So that's going to be interesting for a little while, but it's not going to be easy. But he's just sitting there going, this is good. I can do this. I can do this. And that's when he meets him and realizes, right, I'm going to have this conversation. So that it was part of that week where he was like getting into like the new normal for himself.
Yes.
So It was perfectly timed. So at the end of that week, he's on the phone with Enrique, and he shares that him and Victor had a big falling out, and they still haven't spoken. And so that's how we know that it has been radio silence for those two.
Oh, kind of. It hasn't fully been radio silence.
It's been radio silence from him.
The roles reversed.
Yes.
Because now Victor is texting and calling Enrique, and Enrique is not responding. He said, girl, bye.
Yeah.
With Enrique, what I'm seeing is like you are dealing with something so stressful, like you've become toxic to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're toxic to yourself, you're toxic to those around you, especially those that show you compassion, empathy, anything like that, or people that you care about. You start to push people away, and that's how you do it. And
right. And he's completely pushed the guy away.
Yeah.
So Victor shows up. He's like, I'm not going to take no for an answer, and just shows up at the apartment.
We need to fucking talk, bruh.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I love you. And I'm like, whoa, that was quick.
Yeah.
So like, and I mean, I feel like here, this is where Enrique should have been paying attention. Victor wasn't upset about so much the HIV status. He was upset about, as you said, the choice of knowing going into it with the choice. He still had to educate himself. He got like a little crash course when he went and got tested.
Right.
But like, there was so much more that he could have learned, and Enrique could have taught him. And in doing so, the situation wouldn't have become as volatile as it did.
Yeah.
And so, as with all like romantic relationships or any relationship, really, the biggest issue here is communication.
Mm-hmm.
God, communication is so important.
Absolutely. Victor has a very intense, like mature moment where he's like, look, this is where I'm accountable. This is why I was upset. I love you. And Enrique's like, look, I'm not mad. I forgive you. I wish you the best in all future endeavors. And irony of all ironies, he's like, you're talking to me about what you want and you're ignoring what I want. I was like, okay, well, that's rich.
Yeah, coming from you.
But he's like, I don't want to be with you. So no. And sends him away again. Only to have a very surprise visitor the next day.
Yeah. Carlos.
Carlos is back.
His Cuban lover.
Comes home from work to find him in the living room.
Oh, I would have fucking lost my shit.
Yeah. So he shows up and tells him that he's had some time to think. Yeah. He knows that he was wrong, and he's ready to spend the rest of his life with him. I'm okay with the fact
I've come out now. My family knows now. Like, and it's not a secret anymore.
He keeps saying, it's okay with me now that you have HIV. It's okay with, like, I'm okay with it now.
Yeah.
I can live with it now.
I just broke your heart.
Me, I. The whole conversation.
Yeah, and like Enrique, you know, you see where it all comes from. It's like transference almost. Like Enrique acts as like a conduit for what Carlos does to him. Enrique, in a way, internalizes, and then figures out a way to push Victor.
Yeah.
So he does the same thing to Victor that Carlos has done to him, but in a much different way. Mm-hmm. Like with a different premise.
So, a different motivation.
Yeah. And I think this moment's pivotal because he looks at Carlos and he's like, yeah, no dice. Fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
I am happy to say that I thought this would have gone much different, but here we are. There you are. I'm sitting pretty. Fuck you very much. You go somewhere else.
Yeah, he realizes what a narcissist he is.
And Carlos is like, you'll regret this. Will I? But
yeah, you'll regret this. Shakes his fist, just storms out in this like, okay.
He's like, you'll regret this, and
rolls back into the country 3 years later, and is like shocked.
He's like, hey, you and me, and he's like, no, and he's like, what? How could you?
Yeah.
This is really important because in a way, Carlos showing up gave Enrique the closure that he needed so he could stop transferring all of this negativity from him and Carlos over onto him and Victor.
Yeah, it was sort of both closure and self-introspection.
Yeah,
in that moment.
He's like, I mean, for as long as Carlos is just like out and gone.
Right.
And Victor was there, he had 2 doors open at one time. He needed to close one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he needed to he thought he was closing the door on Victor, but he ends up actually closing the door on Carlos, or so he thinks.
Right.
So we jump over to Victor.
Yeah. Because it's his friend who comes running in.
Yeah, Sandra. She shows up wearing her Hello Kitty pajamas or some shit that she would never even leave the house in because, you know, Brazilian women.
Yeah, so he's at home just sort of like really melancholy over the fact that he tried everything he can think of. He's talking to his dad like, hey, what do you do when how
do you undo something?
How do you undo something when you've screwed up so bad you don't know how to fix it? He's having this really great heart to heart.
And his dad's like, as long as you're not straight.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't handle the curveball.
Yeah. So in the midst of Victor sort of figuring out that I may have fucked up so bad I can't fix this, she comes running in with her phone in her hand and shows him Instagram.
Yeah.
Where Carlos has plastered
outed
him the picture. He's plastered a picture of Enrique
with a blood red stamp over it. Like, took the time to edit this. It says infected with AIDS.
It's gone viral at this point.
Yes.
Like, Victor is seeing it because his like study group is sharing it, and I mean that's how it's gone full. I mean, it is viral.
And the study group doesn't know that Victor is currently like in a lover's quarrel.
Right. It was a very subtle way to explain that this thing had gone viral, that it was like a friend had shared it with a friend who shared it with a study group, who shared it with a group chat. I mean, like, that's how it had gotten to him, and they don't even know he knows this guy.
And so what's cool is you see all these people starting to rally, and people are reaching out to Enrique over it. You have people that are like, hey, this isn't legal. Like, I work with this foundation, this charity. Like, we can help work with you to make sure this is taken care of, to take legal action against him. And you have others that are like, kill yourself, faggot. I can say that word. You can't. There's, like
people sending him Bible verses. Parents are sending him messages, like either saying that they are glad their kids aren't like him, or your mother must be. So, oh my God, it just goes on and on and on.
God, I hope his mother is like fucking hating herself, stupid bitch. And then he gets a call from his boss that's like,
yes,
I need you to come in. And it's
on a Saturday. Yeah. He's like, I'm getting fired.
He's like, yeah.
And his roommate's like, well, that's illegal. And he's like, and
they'll figure out a way.
They're gonna find something at this point. Like, he's hopeless. It's the saddest little montage of him taking the train and the walk.
Oh, and it's not that. It's just because this has gone so viral.
Yeah.
He's like nervous on the train. Someone's going to fucking recognize him.
Right. When he walks into the office, he's convinced everybody.
All of his anonymity has been taken away.
Yes. Completely.
Everyone's like, are you okay? What's going on? And he's like, no, I'm not okay. And they're like,
okay.
All right, man. Shit. And then he finds out that like
she called him in to work on a project. Like,
she's like, I got 2 hours for you to fix this, and he's like, oh, I thought you were gonna fire me for this. She's like, look, dude.
And that's when he knows that she's seen it.
Yeah. She's like, that doesn't matter.
Right.
That has nothing to do with your work. And then he's like, oh, I gotta support. She's like, I didn't create a place for it to be controlled by other people's ignorance.
Right.
And then he's like, oh, dang, I got support group. And this is where this is the part of the story where you see all of his different support group like come together.
Yes.
There were, Eric's, the drag queen roommate, best friend, calls the girls and is like, yo, I got a plan. Because Eric's like, oh, you want to let it go? You want to let it go? Fun. No, we're not doing that.
He's like, you don't want to sue him? Fine. I got a better idea.
And Enrique's just like, oh, let's just leave it alone. He's like, no dice.
Yeah. Gathers everyone at the apartment.
And half these girls that show up are there because like
they love him.
Don't care. No questions asked. Just, let's do this. And that's something you see in the gay community a lot, the LGBT, the queer community in general. Like, I feel like somebody with HIV and AIDS is going to be a lot more accepted by the LGBTQ plus community, even if they're not LGBTQ plus. They're going to be accepted a lot more by them because, like, for the most part, we have a better understanding of it.
Right. So he calls not only the girls, but Victor.
Yep.
Ian.
Sandra.
She comes along too. Everybody's there to participate in this. Lucas doesn't tell us what their plan is. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah.
All we know is that everybody's dispersing to go get supplies.
Yeah.
For whatever this like.
When I heard this, I'm like, oh yeah. I've been down this road before.
You can tell it's going to get petty real fast.
Yes.
So everybody disperses to go get supplies for whatever it might be. And it leaves these two to talk. A much needed talk.
Victor and Enrique. And what's great about it is Victor's like, what do you need from me?
Yeah,
he's not even like, hey, let's talk about our relationship right now. He's like, what do you need from me?
Right.
Like, how can I support you? What way can I support you? What do you need from me? Like,
because he wants to go. He wants to go beat Carlos's ass, and he won't let him. He's like, no. And he's like, okay.
I think Carlos probably could take him. That's
why. He's like, what else can I do? Like, he's like you said, it's not about him at all. He's just there for him. But yeah, they reconcile very quickly.
Yeah,
because all the things we've just talked about, that Enrique's had a lot of closure with Carlos. This like self introspection in that whole. Confrontation.
And back to what you were saying was, this is what everyone thinks. This is what everyone thinks. This is what everyone thinks. And then he gets this along with getting the closure from Carlos, he's also getting all of this support system around him being like, no, we actually don't think that.
Right.
And here's a proof that you've been self-sabotaging. It's your inner saboteur that's been talking to you this whole time.
Right.
So
it doesn't take long in that conversation when he's, Victor's there just for him, that he's like,
I fucking love that they were like,
He's like, thank you. And it's just very vulnerable and very real. And they both have dropped pretenses and they're just there with each other.
Yes.
It's a really, really adorable and very like
hard. Ian's there, right?
It's a hard, no, he left to go.
Not that, but he's a part of this situation.
Yes, he's part of the situation too. It was a very heartwarming reconciliation, I thought. It was very well done.
So
they all pile into cabs.
Oh, and the cabbies are fucking great.
Yeah.
Love the cabbies. So
drive over to Carlos's house.
The cabbies all knew the girls. And well, my favorite thing that was said is Sandra was like looking around, realizing they're all wearing like minimal 4-inch heels,
stilettos,
and she's like, "How are you guys gonna run in those?" She's like, the girls are like,
Madonna was like, "Are you serious?"
Because I outrun fucking straighties all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't catch us.
Right.
We can run a marathon in these fucking things.
We're good.
Yeah, like ladies, let us show you how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So they call the cabs. They call 3 cabs to pile all these people into, and like the cabs are not just like these little yellow like 3-seater back cabs. They're like van cabs.
Right.
Like this is just how it is in touristy areas. They pick them all up. They drive into Copacabana, which is like the neighborhood, and they light this bitch up.
Oh yeah. So it turns out they have balloons
full of paint. And it's not just like balloons of paint. They did it in a like, and 1 and 2 and 3 and it was choreographed.
They played music at full blast.
Neighbors are coming out like, what's going on? And they're like, watch this. And we're making art. And then like fucking throw balloons full of paint.
Yeah.
And
they rainbow the house.
They rainbow the fucking wall with an electric fence apparently on top of it. Mm-hmm. Rainbow this fucking house up just to be like, fuck you, Carlos.
Right.
And then they take a picture.
Mm-hmm. After
they encouraged.
Enrique had spray painted a message over the rainbow.
HIV doesn't kill. Prejudice does.
But yeah, in that moment, he realizes I have this support system. I have, that's the end, right?
Not exactly, because you have the epilogue.
Okay. So the epilogue is like,
Ian.
6 months later.
Ian's friend, Gabriel, is like, hey, we're getting married. He's like, last conversation we had, you weren't even sure if you want to move in with her. Yeah. But now you're getting married. He's like, yeah, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, so the epilogue starts with the wedding and Gustavo's there as his date. And it's 6 months into the future. So my first thought is like, have you had this conversation yet? Like, clearly things are going well. It's 6 months,
Yeah.
So he says, I have something to tell you. I'm HIV positive. He blinked once, twice, 3 times. Processing the information, and then said, I have condoms. And he says, you're not running away? This was my favorite. I like you. I have condoms. Multiple.
There's a Waterloo in every state.
Like, you gotta love that it was just like all, and it's the last page. It's the last page of the book that builds up to this like, okay. Like,
my favorite part about it is Gustavo goes with him to the doctors, and Gustavo's like, oh, I got all these questions, and he gets on prep and he does that. Gustavo totally changes his lifestyle and everything that he's doing in his day-to-day to make sure he is best protected, so that way he can have this lasting relationship with Ian, in which he should be best protected anyway.
Right. Yeah. So linearly, you look at how this conversation between 2 men went with Carlos and Enrique.
Yeah.
How it went with him and Victor.
Yeah.
And then the evolution to, at the very end,
and Gustavo.
How Ian took all of that and met this person, and it went that way. So I sort of love that progression. It was the last page of the book that conversation happened.
Ian had really shitty luck in the beginning and had great luck in the end. Enrique, he had really shitty luck in the beginning, great luck in the end.
Mm-hmm. And Victor had growth.
Victor went through it.
I liked this one. I really did.
I did too. So, bookends.
Bookends. Okay. This is where we ask you guys the questions that we think you should be asking yourselves as you are reading this book. So, first off, let's start with, who are we recommending where we go from here to read?
Every young queer person I can find.
Okay.
That have
This is like your go-to gift for young queer people?
Yeah. Hey, look, anyone can catch HIV. Look, there's a lot more to HIV than you previously didn't know. Hey, read it.
Mm-hmm. It's a long list, but I would recommend it for anybody who needs to be educated on HIV.
Period.
All right. What questions do we have for people as they are reading this book with others?
Whose team are you on? Peter or Nike?
Ooh.
Yeah. Which?
And how often did it change?
Yeah. Where did you land in the end? I'm still Team Victor. Because Ian demonstrated exactly what Victor wanted Enrique to do. And you see a much different outcome, like true set you free type of situation versus the lie.
Yeah.
So what team were you on?
I started Enrique and I became Victor. I really went through it with these guys. It was like, I see that. No, I
started to go over to, I'm like, nope, loyalty, damn it.
Yeah. When I finally grasped what Victor was trying to say and was stumbling over, I was like, he's got a really good goddamn point. He's not saying it very well, but
my first thought was he wanted to be informed. Informed consent.
Casting call.
Full disclosure, I looked up Brazilian actors because I didn't want to be that white person that's like, I'll just put Mexican there and a Puerto Rican here and a Cuban there. It's all the same.
Right. It's not all the same.
It's not.
It's not all the same, but it's the Encanto theory. We fill as many, that's what I was thinking. You fill as many positions with Colombians and then the rest are cast from the wider, broader net. We'll just do the 3 main guys. Otherwise, there's a long list of characters in this one.
Okay.
We're starting with Ian?
Yeah, I'm going to put Tomás Costa.
Ian, I had a young, again, I have to time travel for this one, but I had a young Wilmer Valderrama.
Okay. I would actually put him at Enrique.
So speaking of Enrique, you have? Who do you have?
A younger Henry Castelli.
I had Adam Rodriguez.
Okay.
And then Victor.
I had Lino Faccioli.
So for Victor, I had Jesse Metcalf.
Okay.
Who's Portuguese.
Yeah.
So, but like Desperate Housewives era.
I had a huge crush on him.
Did you really?
Yeah. Jesse Metcalf. Yeah, I had a huge crush on him.
Oh, him and Ava Longoria together.
That's fun. She's bi. I'm not. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Cracking Spines podcast. Next week, we will be talking about Queens of Geek by Jen Wild. That'll be for the B for Bisexual Week on LGBT. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Cracking Spines podcast. It's about $5. It's one tier. You get access to bonus content. You get access to extended clips, bloopers. It's a good time. It's for a good price and it's going to go to a good cause.
We should talk about how it's going to cameras.
Oh yeah.
You guys want to see this live. Trust me.
Yeah. We're actually going to be putting it towards cameras.
Right.
So we need a lot of people to join the Patreon.
Yeah, anything you guys do, whether it's, getting the materials from kit.co, joining the Patreon, it's all towards enhancing the content, bringing more stuff to you guys.
Merch will be coming soon. There will be merch available on a Teespring that I'm putting together. And also there will be exclusive merch that's only available to those on Patreon as well. All of our socials, you can find it on Linktree, linktr.ee/Cracking Spines. And you can go find us on our store, kit.co/Cracking Spines podcast, kit.co/Cracking Spines podcast. Okay, bye.
And we're out.
Throw me in front of a bus once I turn 83. Like
83.
Yeah, one of my enemies. Just fucking chuck me.
That's a very specific number.
I don't want to live past 83. I don't know why.
82.
Cool.
Rock
83.
on.
No thanks. But if I make it past 83, I want to live to like 100.
Okay.
So that way I can put like a 90-year-old or an 80-year-old in the chat.
Wait, I'm confused. So when you turn 83, you want me to throw you in front of a bus?
I said enemy, but that makes sense. That tracks. I just wanted to give my enemy something.
But if you make it past 83, you want to live to 100, meaning if they fail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if I somehow change my mind and I'm like, oh, dodge that one.
Okay.
And I
just making notes for the future.
I want to live to be at least 100, so that way I can look at someone that's like 90 and be like, listen here, little girl. Hey, young man, I know your parents. I knew them. I will outlive you. Fuck off.
I'll enjoy watching that.
I think that would
I'll be 112, but
180. But like